Well, what about you, Mr. Presley? Are you ready to fly?
Yes, sir. I'm ready. Ready to fly.
Hi. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I am Swear and this is my corner. Even though there's no actual corner, but for the purpose of the video, welcome back. Welcome back to my corner. Yeah, I've got so much rust, I don't know how to make videos anymore. Okay. For today's video, I really wanted to discuss the brand new movie Elvis that came out like 2 months ago. I watched it for the first time like 2 days ago, and I cannot get it out of my head. But before we get into the actual movie, I really wanted to discuss movie trailers and movies first. Now, we seem to be living in a time where the quality of our movies has kind of dipped significantly. But what's worse than having poor movies coming out in recent times is having trailers that look good for a really terrible movie. I'm talking about trailers like Batman vs. Superman, The Suicide Squad, Cats. And if you're like me and you've actually seen those movies, then you will know that the trailers that came out for those movies, they were actually okay. You know, they quite nicely, for me at least, they hyped up the movie and I was very excited to see what they were going to deliver to us. But if you've seen those movies, again, you will know that those movies did not deliver at all, and they were trash, waste of money, and a waste of time. Oh, I've wasted so much money on such terrible movies. I want my money back. Yes, I've been duped by a lot of movies by watching their trailers, and I've been intrigued by the premise or the idea of this movie, and then I've just been completely let down by the finished product. That's why I wanted to make this video here today, because I remember sitting in the theater watching some movie, I can't remember what it was, and before the movie started, the trailer for the movie Elvis was on. And I remember watching it and I was like, that movie? I've got to go see that movie. And so after seeing the trailer for Elvis, I made sure I didn't want to see any news about the movie, reviews or anything. I didn't want to know anything about the movie. I just wanted to go in and experience it, hoping that the movie lives up to the expectations that the trailer set up for me. You know, obviously I had somewhat thought I was going to be let down, but I was glad to be wrong. You know, I'd like to put Elvis up there with some of my favorite movie trailers from the last 5-10 years. You know, I want to put it up amongst movie trailers like Joker or even Avengers Infinity War. What I want from a movie trailer is a glimpse into the atmosphere of the world that I'm gonna go see when I see this movie. And the movie trailer for Elvis really, to me, did such a beautiful job of encapsulating what I'm about to go and see. Now that that's all out the way, we can actually talk about the movie. Chefs! Oh my god, this movie was so good. I didn't expect it to be as good as it was, but good god, this was truly a beautiful movie. One of the things that was really surprising to me, because I'd only seen the movie trailer once, I did not know at all what kind of, you know, biopic this was gonna be. You know, was it gonna be a grounded drama? Was it gonna be playful? I didn't know what kind of movie I was getting into, and that was one of the reasons why I was so excited to see it, because I knew that I was gonna be surprised no matter what kind of movie it was gonna be. And one of the things that I found really interesting about this movie was the movie is about Elvis, but it takes place in the perspective of Elvis's manager, right? This film takes place from the perspective of the somewhat villain of this movie, and it's always interesting watching, for me at least, it's always been interesting to watch a movie through the perspective of the villain of the movie. Obviously, villains believe that they are the hero of their own story, and it's always interesting to really watch a villain, I guess, do villainous things without them actually being conscious of the fact that they are truly terrible people. And so I thought it was a very interesting choice to frame this movie from the perspective of the bad guy. And with that being said, every bad guy needs a good guy. You know, every villain needs a superhero that they're trying to overcome. And I remember reading it somewhere briefly, but I think the director of this movie was saying how he wanted to frame Elvis as this somewhat superhero. And you definitely get the vibe of how powerful Elvis is and how he was able to move people with his music and his whole essence and his whole being. And that does really come across in this movie. And by having Elvis as a superhero, you've always got to have a supervillain, and so we have Elvis's manager. And it's just so interesting to watch this kind of narrative take place in such a way, because by the end of the movie you really grow, at least I really grew a hatred towards Tom Hanks's character, you know, and yet the whole movie is framed from his perspective, so it's weird trying not to sympathize with him but to understand him while also building this loathe towards him. I just found that, for me as a viewer, I found that really interesting on the part of the creators of this movie. And I will say, this isn't really a bad thing, but I will say that for people who don't like long movies, this is a pretty long movie. Let me explain myself. This movie is about 2.5 hours, nearly 3 hours long. And while a lot of movies are 3-hour-long movies, they don't need to be, right? But I feel like, at least in this case, in the movie of Elvis, even though this movie is nearly 3 hours, I feel like its runtime was very much so justified. You know, I feel like this movie was paced very well. The reason I say this movie's runtime is somewhat justified is because the way it was presented to us in this 2.5 or nearly 3 hour format, you really get the full scope of all the details to everything that happened through the course of Elvis's life and through the course of the narrative of the movie. You don't feel like you're missing out on any important details. It feels like, as an audience member, I feel like I was fed the entire story. Every aspect of the story that I needed to see, I feel like I received that as an audience member. And so while this movie is fairly long, like I said, I feel like the runtime is justified. Bro, making these videos is so weird again. I don't know how to do this. Bro, I can't get comfortable, man. And I mentioned it briefly earlier, but going into this movie, I wasn't really sure what kind of biopic it was gonna be. And I must say, in the beginning of the movie, I was a little bit nervous for that this movie wasn't gonna live up to my expectations that I derived from the trailer. I remember there's a scene towards the beginning of the movie when we get introduced to Elvis. He's kind of just walking around, and I remember there was like a Doja Cat song playing, and don't get me wrong, I like Doja Cat. She's good at what she does. I really like her music, but it felt so out of place, you know, like a song that's come out today being put in a 1960s, 70s biopic. I just found that quite jarring for me, and it did take me out of the cinematic experience. And I remember when that scene happened, I got a little bit nervous that this movie was going to disappoint me. But I must say, as jarring as it was, this movie didn't disappoint me at all. And even though I didn't necessarily like that one aspect of the movie, I think overall this movie absolutely smashed it out of the park. I know that I'm extremely late to talking about this movie Elvis, but that's only because I haven't had a chance to, up till now, actually watch the movie. But from what I have been seeing, this movie is really getting its Oscar push. Like, the marketing for this movie has been off the chain. It's been everywhere. Everyone's been talking about it. And that's one of the reasons as well why I was so curious to see this movie, because it's been getting such a big Oscar push for 2023's Oscars that I was wondering if it was going to live up to not just my expectations, but to the expectations that this movie is pushing onto itself. And while we're talking about the Oscars, I do think we should talk about the various performances that come out of this movie. Firstly, let's begin with, the director, Baz Luhrmann. I think that he did a phenomenal job of crafting this movie. This movie comes across as somewhat a love letter to the late Elvis Presley. I think Baz Luhrmann, the director of this movie, did a beautiful job in honoring the king of rock, Elvis Presley. I think the way this movie comes across, it almost feels like a love letter from all of us to the man himself, Elvis. And this comes across all departments, from the acting of Austin Butler and Tom Hanks, to the costuming, to the accurate depiction of the time period and the set pieces, the choreography, the music. I feel like it feels like that everyone who worked on this movie was heavily invested in doing the best job that they possibly could in portraying Elvis as he was and doing him justice in creating this beautiful piece of art. And I think that they should all be proud of themselves for what they accomplished and what they achieved, specifically Austin Butler, you know, the man who plays Elvis in this movie. I remember watching him as a kid, you know, in Nickelodeon shows and whatnot, and now to see him all grown up portraying such an iconic person, I don't know, I feel proud. I feel proud of him, and watching this movie, all I could think of was, I hope that when he watched this movie, he felt very proud of himself. You know, I could imagine that playing such an iconic person is not easy, and it holds a lot of weight. You know, as an actor myself, I haven't played real people yet, but I do understand that when you play a character, there's a certain weight that comes with it, and you feel the need to do justice to that character. And I hope that Austin is very much so proud of himself for what he, Tom Hanks, Baz, the rest of the wonderful cast, costuming. I hope that everyone is just really proud of the work that they produced, because I'm proud on their behalf, if that counts for anything. I don't want to keep us here for too long, because I'm looking at my bed right now, and my friends, a nap is calling my name. Like sorry, my bed looks so warm right now, and all I can think about is having just a beautiful nap. You know, waking up in like 2.5 hours with like drool on my face, having lines on my forehead, and just not knowing where I am. That's all I can think about right now. Why am I talking about my bed? I'm recording a video. But yeah, there was one last thing that I really wanted to touch on, and that was the ending of this movie. You know, I wouldn't really say that the ending has been haunting me, but it's really been on my mind for the last 2 days since I've watched the movie. Firstly, in the regards of the final part of the movie, spoilers ahead, the final part of the movie takes us to the very final performance in Elvis Presley's life. You know, and the movie does a beautiful job of cutting from the actor of Austin Butler to displaying the performance of the real Elvis Presley. And those transitions are so seamless that it actually shows you how good of a job the people making the movie did in trying to match this movie version to the actual footage of Elvis's final performance. And watching Elvis, you know, belt out his final performance, it was, for me, I found it very heartbreaking. You know, knowing the behind the scenes of it, and knowing that he was in so much pain, and knowing that he dies shortly after this performance, and then just seeing him with the little strength that he has left to belt out one final song. You know, I found that so beautiful, that he really died doing the thing that he loved. Like, it was as if in his final performance, he truly gave everything that he had within him to this performance. And I remember watching it, and I kind of got teary-eyed, because I was like, damn, you know, how he feels about his music is kind of how I feel about my acting. You know, I truly, when I go out there and do what I do, I truly give everything. You know, I leave nothing left. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. You know what I mean? And I admire Elvis a lot. If I was to pass away, you know, if I was to go out, I want to go out doing the thing that I loved the most. And I think Elvis, if he's proud of anything that he did in his life, I think he should be proud of the legacy that he left behind. You know, Elvis is the king of rock and roll. Sorry, I'm getting lost again. Because I'm thinking about it, and it's giving me like chills, you know, just thinking about this movie and how it played out. And I mentioned earlier how the ending to me was kind of haunting, is because Tom Hanks's character towards the end of the movie, he says a line that I found really interesting. You know, he says something along the lines of,
What killed my boy? Them doctors say it was his heart. Others, the pills. Some say it was me. No. I'll tell you what killed him. It was love. His love for you.
I didn't kill Elvis. You killed him. You know, in a sense, he's been talking to the audience the whole movie, and he tells us that even though maybe he was responsible for Elvis's drug addiction and he stole from Elvis and all those kind of things, the reason Elvis died was because of Elvis's desire to please us. You know, and I found that really interesting. Maybe because I'm somewhat of a people pleaser, or other reasons that I'm still thinking about and still trying to understand myself. But as a performer, I can relate to that in the sense of when I get on stage or when I get in front of the camera, I feel like it's my duty to give the people watching me everything that I have. You know, even if it kills me. You know, and in Elvis's final performance, he truly gave everything that he had. And he died. And I've been thinking about, okay, I'm getting goosebumps again. I've been thinking about that theme and that idea, you know, for the past 2 days. And it's really been stuck in my mind. And I haven't come to a conclusion on how I feel about it. But I just really wanted to come back to the channel and share my thoughts on really this movie, specifically the ending, but the movie overall, and how much I enjoyed it and how much the movie even eclipsed my expectations, and it was so much better than the trailer even depicted. You know, I feel like the people, I've said it already, but I feel like the people who made this movie should be really proud of themselves. And if I'm ever able to be a part of any kind of project that is as beautiful and honest and honorable as this project was, I think that I will truly forever be grateful. Okay, that's it. We did it. I successfully finished recording a video after like a month and a half of not recording anything. Thank you guys for watching this whole way through. I do appreciate it, and I do plan to be uploading more regularly. I've got a lot of videos that I've been planning, and so I'm ready to come back to the channel and just spew all my thoughts onto you. Let me know what you guys thought of this movie. I thought it was beautiful. Let me know how you feel about the ending as well. Let me know what other movies you want me to watch. But that's it. You know, it's been me, Swear May, and thank you for joining me in my corner. Cheers.
I learned very early in life that without a song, the day would never end. Without a song, a man ain't got a friend. Without a song, the road would never bend. Without a song. So I'll keep singing a song.